I was 32 years old, engaged to a man I'd been with for 6 years and had never questioned my sexuality until the moment Maya walked into that yoga studio wearing a simple black tank top and the most disarming smile I'd ever seen. I remember my hands trembling during downward dog, not from the physical effort, but from the electric awareness that flooded through me every time she adjusted my posture with those gentle, confident touches. That Tuesday morning class was supposed to be about stress relief and flexibility. Just another item checked off my wedding preparation wellness routine. Instead, it became the moment that shattered everything I thought I knew about myself and set me on a path I never imagined I'd walk. I'd joined the studio 3 months before my wedding because my best friend Sarah insisted that yoga would help with pre-wedding anxiety. The regular instructor, an older woman named Patricia, was perfectly fine, calm, professional, forgettable. Then Patricia went on maternity leave and Maya arrived to substitute for 6 weeks. I'll never forget walking into that first class and seeing her at the front of the room, arranging blocks and straps with such focused grace that I couldn't look away. She had long dark hair pulled into a messy bun, tan skin that suggested hours spent outdoors, and these deep brown eyes that seemed to see right through every defense I'd ever built. The class that morning was smaller than usual, maybe 8 people scattered across the hardwood floor. Maya introduced herself with a warmth that felt genuine rather than performative, explaining that she'd been teaching for 7 years and specialized in restorative practices for people dealing with major life transitions. Something about the way she said transitions made my stomach flip, though I couldn't have explained why at the time. When she asked if anyone was dealing with significant changes, my hand shot up before my brain could stop it. "I'm getting married in 3 months," I said. And I swear something flickered across her face, recognition, maybe, or understanding of something I couldn't yet see myself. Maya's teaching style was completely different from Patricia's. Where Patricia maintained professional distance, Maya moved through the room like she was dancing, her hands making subtle adjustments that somehow communicated more than words. When she reached me during that first warrior pose, placing her hands on my hips to correct my alignment, I felt something I'd never experienced in 6 years with David, a spark that traveled through my entire body and settled somewhere deep in my chest. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Breathe through the discomfort." Sometimes our bodies know things our minds aren't ready to acknowledge yet. I nearly fell out of the pose. I told myself it was nothing. A moment of stress-induced weirdness, the result of wedding planning chaos and too much caffeine. I went home to David that evening, kissed him hello, and tried to forget about brown eyes and gentle hands. But the next Tuesday, I found myself counting down the hours until yoga class with an anticipation that had nothing to do with exercise. I changed my outfit 3 times, settled on leggings and a fitted top that I told myself was just comfortable workout gear, and arrived at the studio 20 minutes early. Maya was already there, setting up for class. "You're eager," she said with a smile that made my face flush. "Or maybe just really committed to your practice." We ended up talking for those 20 minutes before class started, and I learned that she'd moved to the city 6 months ago from California, that she'd left behind a corporate career that was suffocating her soul, and that she believed yoga was about truth, about stripping away the layers of who we pretend to be until we find who we actually are. When other students started arriving, I felt an irrational disappointment that our conversation had to end. The classes became the highlight of my week. I started arriving early and staying late, asking Maya questions about poses that I could have easily Googled, finding excuses to be near her. She recommended books about mindfulness and self-discovery, and we started texting about them between classes. Nothing inappropriate, just thoughts about the readings, questions about techniques, observations about the practice. But underneath every message was a current of something unspoken. Something that terrified and excited me in equal measure. 4 weeks into Maya's substitution, I showed up for class still shaking from a fight with David. We'd argued about the wedding, specifically about my suggestion that maybe we should postpone it. I couldn't explain to him why I felt this sudden need to pause, to breathe, to figure something out that I couldn't name. He'd been hurt and confused, and I'd left the house feeling like the worst person in the world. Maya took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. After class, she asked me to stay for a few minutes. The studio emptied, and suddenly we were alone in this quiet space that smelled of lavender and possibility. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked, and something in her voice, such genuine care, such open compassion, broke whatever dam I'd been building. I found myself telling her everything. The doubts about the wedding. The feeling that I was sleepwalking through my own life. The sense that I was about to make a permanent decision that would close doors I hadn't even known existed. Maya listened without judgment, her eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Can I tell you something? I was engaged once. To a man. I planned the whole wedding, sent the invitations, bought the dress. And 3 weeks before the ceremony, I realized I was building a life that would require me to hide the most essential part of myself forever." My heart stopped. I called it off. It was the hardest and most honest thing I've ever done. And 6 months later, I met the woman who became my partner for 4 years. The air in the studio felt thick, charged with everything we weren't saying. "How did you know?" I whispered. "That you were ... I couldn't finish the sentence. Maya smiled gently. I think I'd always known somewhere deep down. But I'd gotten so good at ignoring that voice, at convincing myself that what I felt for women was just admiration or close friendship. Until I met someone who made ignoring it impossible. I don't know who moved first. Maybe we both did. But suddenly we were closer than we'd ever been. Close enough that I could see gold flecks in her brown eyes. Close enough that I could feel her breath on my face. "I've never ... I started, and she nodded. "I know." Her hand came up to cup my face, her thumb tracing my cheekbone with such tenderness that tears sprang to my eyes. "We don't have to do anything," she said softly. "But I think you need to be honest with yourself about what you're feeling." I kissed her. Or she kissed me. The details blurred in the overwhelming rightness of it. Her lips were soft and tasted like mint tea, and kissing her felt like finally understanding a language I'd been hearing my whole life without comprehension. When we pulled apart, I was crying, and she was wiping my tears away with gentle fingers. "Oh," I said, because it was the only word that captured the enormity of what I'd just discovered. "Oh." The next few weeks were chaos. I told David the truth, not about Maya specifically, but about the questions I needed to answer about myself. He was devastated, and I hated being the source of his pain. We called off the wedding. I moved out of our apartment into a tiny studio that barely fit a bed and a dresser. My parents were confused and hurt. Friends took sides. It was messy and painful and absolutely necessary. Maya and I didn't rush into anything. She told me I needed time to figure out who I was outside of any relationship, and she was right. We kept attending yoga classes together, kept having those long conversations, kept building a foundation of friendship and honesty. Patricia came back from maternity leave, but Maya started teaching evening classes at the studio, and I switched my schedule to match hers. 6 months after that first kiss, Maya and I went on our first official date. We saw a movie neither of us remembers because we spent the whole time holding hands in the dark theater, marveling at the simple miracle of being able to do so. We took things slowly, learning each other at a pace that felt right. She introduced me to the LGBTQ+ community in our city, helped me navigate coming out to family and friends, held me through the grief of losing my former life even as I celebrated discovering my true self. It's been 2 years now. Maya and I share that tiny studio apartment that still barely fits 2 people, but we're looking at bigger places. She still teaches yoga, and I've started taking teacher training myself, not just for the practice, but because I want to create spaces where people can discover their own truths, whatever those might be. My relationship with my family has slowly healed as they've seen how genuinely happy I am. David eventually reached out to say he was glad I'd been honest, even though it had hurt. Sometimes I think about the woman I was before that Tuesday morning. Engaged to a good man. Following a script I'd been handed without questioning whether it was the right story for me. I think about all the years I spent not understanding the way my heart would race around certain female friends. The way I'd admire women with an intensity that went beyond appreciation. I'd convinced myself I was just being friendly, just appreciating beauty, just having normal platonic feelings. I'd been so committed to the heterosexual narrative, I'd been raised with that I couldn't see the truth that had been there all along. Maya taught me more than yoga. She taught me that the most important poses we master aren't physical. They breathe the courage to stand in our truth, the strength to bend toward authenticity even when it's uncomfortable, and the balance required to honor both who we've been and who we're becoming. She taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is disrupt your entire life because staying in the wrong story would be a betrayal of your soul. I'm grateful for that trembling feeling in Downward Dog, for brown eyes that saw me before I could see myself, for the gentle hands that helped me adjust not just my yoga posture, but my entire life as alignment. I never looked at women that way until Maya walked into my life and helped me understand that I'd been looking at them that way all along. I'd just been too afraid to admit what I was seeing. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever questioned the path you're on, or felt something you were afraid to name, hit that subscribe button. This channel is dedicated to sharing authentic love stories that don't always fit the traditional narrative, but are no less beautiful for their complexity. Leave a comment sharing your own journey or the moment you knew something about yourself you'd been hiding. Your story matters, and this community is here to support you through every transition, every discovery, every moment of choosing truth over comfort.